Hi, welcome to the 14-day weather forecast. In this update, I'm going to be covering not one, but 2 bank holiday weekends. So, are things looking good for a beano to the beach or a barbecue in the back garden? Let's take a look. As usual, I'll start with the view across Europe and the North Atlantic. The animation runs from 18 GMT, Tuesday the 25th. It's mainly dry at the outset. There is a little white shading in the north, and that indicates wintry showers, so the air mass covering the country is a cold one. But it's to the southwest we need to be looking. There's a band of rain here, milder air tucked in behind it. As I run the animation, that milder air steadily moves northeastwards across the UK, but it takes its time to reach Scotland, and there could well be some snow over high ground there, over the mountains, as the weather fronts move up and bump into the cold Arctic air. But they should turn back to rain, and by the start of the bank holiday weekend, it's quite a mixed picture. We've lost the northeasterly flow, but there's some showery rain in much of the UK, and I'm going to be looking at the bank holiday weekend in a little bit more detail later on. But concluding this animation, there's more mixed weather through Sunday and Monday, but by the end, high pressure is reasserting itself. It's centred to the north UK, it's strengthening, mostly settled at the very end of the first week. But once again, we've now lost that southwesterly flow. Temperatures may well be dipping. The air temperature sequence illustrates what's going on quite nicely. To start off with, the UK is under the blue shading. The dark blues there in the north indicate where the coldest air is. These forecast values, of course, are at about 1,500 metres above sea level. In the short term, that milder air moves up from the southwest, the yellows and the greens, but the blues are never far away from the north. And by the end of the week, as high pressure builds, the yellows and greens are being replaced with light blues, so values are dipping once again. How does all that reflect to what we can expect down at the ground level? Forecast maximums here, 15 GMT, Wednesday the 26th. Disappointing for late April, 11s, 12s in much of England and Wales. Lower here, perhaps where there's some cloud and rain being forecast at the given time. On the whole, though, the coldest conditions are still in Scotland. Overnight low, so Wednesday into Thursday, 3s, 4s, 5s in the south, a little bit warmer there in the London area. Still frosty, though, in the north, but generally milder than it has been in southern and central counties. Moving forwards to Thursday afternoon, daytime values are climbing. 16s, 17s in southern and central Britain, so feeling quite pleasant. We've lost that cold Arctic air, at least in the south of the UK. It's still colder in the north, though, significantly so. Probably quite a wet picture there as those weather fronts move up. What about the bank holiday weekend itself? I've already hinted that it looks quite changeable. Here are forecast maximum temperatures for Saturday. The chart on the left from the GFS model, the one on the right, the UK Met Office UKV. Good consistency between the pair of them. 20 Celsius being shown there in central and southeastern England. Pleasantly warm. It's still, though, significantly colder in Scotland, particularly in the northeast. And as I've already hinted, the GFS was showing some rain. This is 15 GMT on Saturday. And the UKV model is showing showery conditions as well. Possibly some longer spells of rain there pushing into the southwest. Quite a mixed Saturday. Moving forwards to Sunday, maximum temperatures a little bit lower generally. Still not too bad though. 15s, 16s in southern and central counties. The lowest values in the northeast there, particularly on the right-hand chart, the UK Met Office global model. Will there be any rain around on Sunday? Unfortunately, both of these are suggesting the answer is yes. GFS has low pressure centred just west of Scotland. Outbreaks of rain pushing southeastwards across the UK, and the Met Office global model there on the right also indicates showers or longer spells of rain affecting large parts of the UK. It doesn't look fantastic. Bank holiday Monday, here the temperature forecasts are. Again, not looking too bad in southern Britain. Maximums of around 19 Celsius according to the GFS, a little bit lower, the UK Met Office global. But especially in the northeast there, it is significantly cooler across the northern half of the UK. But as I say, it's really the northeast where the lowest values are. And that's probably because high pressure is starting to become centred to the north, the colder air filtering down its eastern flank by this point. In terms of rainfall, neither model suggests a completely dry bank holiday Monday. GFS has some patchy rain affecting the north and the east. Similar on the UK Met Office Global. If anything, the outbreaks of rain are heavier, particularly there in the south. So, looking at all that together, the message is the bank holiday weekend seems to be a mixed one, at least at the time that I'm recording this video. Showery spells of rain possible in all parts of the UK, some longer outbreaks maybe as well. Drier and warmer periods too, the highest temperatures in southern and central Britain where 20 Celsius could be reached. But the devil is in the details. Check the short range forecasts because there is still time for things to improve or deteriorate. Okay, rainfall. Here are the 5-day aggregate charts from the ECM model on the left, the GFS on the right. All parts of the UK seeing at least a little bit of rain during this period. The highest values generally in the north, so Scotland and Northern Ireland. Moving ahead to the 0 to 10-day period, totals have increased everywhere, significant amounts of rain. Once more, the highest values mostly in Scotland and Northern Ireland, but all parts of the UK seeing some rain according to the two models. So quite a mixed outlook, if this is correct. So in more general terms, how do the deterministic models compare with each other towards the end of the first week? Here is the GFS, Tuesday the 2nd of May. High pressure centre to the north, the cold air moving down its eastern flank. Low pressure to the west of the UK here. The greens covering the UK. So it's fairly dry, as I was hinting, fairly settled. Temperatures not fantastic, but not as cold as it has been recently. The Canadian model shows a similar pattern. Low pressure there centred to the west. The German icon, consistent as well. The European ECM, broadly similar. And finally, the UK Met Office. There are some differences here with the positioning and orientation of the low pressure, but the general pattern is quite consistent. High pressure there to the north, there's the cold air, and the UK, something approaching no man's land really. Rather, probably mostly quite settled towards the end of the first week. Temperatures not fantastic. Overnight lows, well, possibly dipping down for frost to continue being a risk, particularly in the north. Well, that's the end of the first week. How are things shaping up as we go through the second week and towards the second bank holiday weekend, the coronation weekend? It's all about trends and probabilities, of course. Here is the 16-day GEFS ensemble plot for London. Air temperatures on the top half, slightly above average. I've annotated the thick purple line. The mean is staying above the thick black line, the 30-year norm, by a couple of degrees there through the first few days. It approaches it, the anomaly becomes less later on, but on the whole, slightly above average. But there is quite a big spread. There are a few runs which bring in much warmer conditions, much warmer air aloft at least, and a few which are colder. And the thick green line there is the GFS operational, which the animations were based on. It's at the colder end of the ensemble for much of the second week. Rainfall across the bottom, not many spikes there early on, mostly dry, but towards the end, as we head through the coronation weekend, unfortunately, the number of spikes starts to increase, so the risk of rain grows. But it doesn't look terribly wet. I think it's too early to be at all confident about how this is going to shape up. There is a reasonable chance that this dry period may be extended a couple more days into the bank holiday weekend. 2 metre temperature data table for London. Mostly this orangey colour. Those are forecast maximums between 16 and 20 Celsius. A little bit of the darker orange, so the warmer ones, 21 to 25, and some of the yellow there, the 11s to 15s. Not a very strong trend in temperatures through the week, perhaps increasing a little bit through the first few days and maybe dipping later on, but it doesn't look too bad, nothing special there. The plot for Manchester showing forecast air temperatures and precipitation, similar to the London one in terms of the air temperatures, so slightly above the average. Also, the rain risk increases. There aren't many spikes there at all to start off with, but their number grows as the week goes on. And the 2 metre temperature data table for Manchester, fairly consistent with the London one, although perhaps the signals here are a little bit clearer. Upwards through the first few days, so temperatures climbing, and then a downward trend through the rest of the period. The amount of orange there decreases, the yellows increase, and there's also a little bit of green, runs going from between 6 and 10 Celsius as the maximum. Up to Glasgow, fairly consistent again. The positive anomaly, so the signal for temperatures to be above average, is a bit smaller than it was on the Manchester and London plots, but it is there just about the thick purple line, the ensemble mean, mostly above the thick black line. The risk of rain also increases through the second week. There are a few spikes earlier on, but it is mainly dry to start off with. The 2 metre temperature data table for Glasgow. Yellows make up the bulk of the columns for most of the time, 11s to 15 Celsius, although there is quite a significant amount of the orange for 16s to 20s through the first few days. Also, some of the lighter green, and that increases later on, the 6 to 10 Celsius runs. So probably warmer through the first few days than it is later. The trend is for temperatures to fall through the second half of the second week. What's happening to the risk of frost? As I've been doing in recent weeks, I've pulled up the data table showing overnight minimum temperatures for Berkhamsted, so in the home counties just far enough outside of London to escape the urban heat island. 6 to 10s being shown by the light green. No risk of frost if those runs are correct. Still a significant amount of dark green though. Those runs going for between 1 and 5 Celsius. They suggest the possibility of ground frost, at least some of them do. On the whole though, in the south, the risk of frost is lower than it has been. The 10-day GEFS mean surface level pressure plot, so this is valid on Friday the 5th of May, just as we're heading into the Coronation Bank Holiday weekend. Low pressure, probably centred to the west. It's quite a mixed pattern over the UK. There are some indications there of high pressure keeping things dry, but this is a blend of all the individual runs within the ensemble, and there are many different solutions being served up by this point. The ECM ensemble plot has low pressure more clearly defined to the west, the likelihood of warmer air being pulled up ahead of it. It would really depend on exactly where the low pressure was centred. Too close to the UK and we could end up under quite a showery or wet setup, but if it's further west, there's always that chance of high pressure being able to keep things drier and warmer. The mean surface level pressure data table for York, so going through the second week rather than a static snapshot, has a lot of orange in the columns to begin with. Those are runs going for between 1026 and 1040 millibars, so high pressure dominating. Later on though, it decreases. The yellows continue to make up a large amount of the columns. Those are 1011 to 1025 millibars. but the amount of green grows, lower pressure, and a little bit concerningly, some of the blue starts to appear. Blue is showing runs forecasting pressure of between 981 and 995 millibars. The possibility at least of nasty areas of low pressure coming into play. If those are correct, it's definitely something to keep an eye on. The trend through week 2 as we go towards the second bank holiday weekend is for pressure to be falling. Although, as I've said, it wouldn't surprise me if this is delayed a little bit and we see high pressure continuing to have more influence until later on. But a long way off, and it's in the update next week when I'll spend more time focusing on the second bank holiday weekend. So, to summarise, week 1, it's a chilly start, but temperatures recover, and 20 Celsius is a possibility in the south. But a rather changeable pattern looks like developing as we head towards and through the bank holiday weekend, so there could well be showers or longer spells of rain in all areas, but also dry periods. If you are planning something for the weekend, keep an eye on the short-range forecasts. Week 2, high pressure probably brings a more settled start. The nights could be chilly and the risk of frost is still there, quite low in the south, but higher as you head northwards. Towards the end of the week, the risk of rain starts to increase again as pressure falls. A more changeable picture as we go towards the second bank holiday weekend is being signalled by some of the computer model data at the present time. It's a long, long way off though. So there we have it, a mixed bag of weather on the whole. The first bank holiday weekend doesn't look fantastic. On the other hand, it may not turn out too bad. For some people, you could be lucky, miss the showers, catch some warm spells of sunshine. It really is a case of keeping an eye on the short-range forecast, as I've been saying, just to see how the details firm up. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it and found it useful. As ever, if you did, I'd be very grateful if you could hit the like button below and subscribe to the channel if you've not already done so. Thanks very much for watching now. Bye.